What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news and the most interesting people with a touch of what, Terrence?
Touch of good old humor, man.
Good old humor, man. Today
It's a special one. It's a special one.
a special one, because me and Terrence, we're sitting next to each other and we're sitting opposite a very, very special guest who we first met at a conference that we hosted like 3 months ago. And since then, we've been in touch. We talked about him coming on our podcast and he's here today. And he is none other than Minister of State Alvin Tan. And he's Minister of State for Trade and Industry and Community, Culture and Youth.
Well done.
Yes.
And we're going to address him as Alvin. Right?
Yes. Because I forgot everything I just said. Yeah, exactly. Welcome to Yalabat.
Very happy to be here, guys.
Awesome.
Wow,
it was
fantastic.
I think we first met you in May when we were moderating a panel for an event for Google. We met you and we're like, this guy's chill. This guy's cool. Let's get him on our podcast. And yeah, today is November. You've been traveling a lot?
Been traveling and going to be traveling next week, so this is a good time.
Oh, perfect.
Can you say where you're traveling to?
I'm going to Mexico.
Wow.
Is this for work or
for work? But people think I'm going there to recruit Chicharito for Singapore or something.
So like this trip, how long are they typically?
It's going to be a week. Yeah, so I'm representing MTI for a trade mission there.
Yeah,
but it's the second time, actually the third time I've been there. First as a backpacker, and then this year twice already.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
how long ago was that backpacking stint?
That is in 2009.
Wow.
Yeah.
2009.
Do you remember where you went?
Yes, Playa del Camon and Chichen Itza.
But did you do the whole backpacking, like stay at a hostel kind of thing?
So I did in Mexico. I did it in Brazil, Sao Paulo, Manaus, in the Amazon rainforest, backpacked.
Yeah.
Rio de Janeiro, and then we hopped over to Argentina.
Was it like alone? Or you weren't alone?
With my wife.
Oh.
So we just got married. We were students, and then we just backpacked.
I see.
So this is like the second time you're going back after.
This is for Mexico. I went to Mexico in May.
Okay.
So this time representing Singapore again for trade discussions
but
next week.
No backpacking on this trip now. This one.
Yeah, it's a different life. Yeah. But I prefer backpacking because you wear, you just chapalang, you just go. It's fun.
Now, if you slip away on your own to get a coffee, it'll be like
national crisis.
Yeah, that's why national crisis.
I don't, but I think my colleagues will be a bit nervous, lah.
Oh yeah.
That's why. But you speak Spanish? Habla español?
Non habla español.
Non habla español.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I also did backpacking in Mexico 2008, I think.
Ooh, okay.
It was great, and I did the whole Mexico City, Teotihuacan. And one more, Flores, I think. Flores in Guatemala.
But that must be something like that you now traveling to places is a very different kind of endeavor for you. Do you think you could ever possibly do that kind of backpacking trip again?
I certainly hope so.
You hope so?
I think it shouldn't be an issue.
Really? But security and all that.
Well, if we're going on a break, then I keep it as low key as possible. We just do our thing. Back before I joined government, I'm like, I travel almost every week.
Yeah.
And then you just, my trick is never ever check in. So you put a gym bag and then you wear sneakers and then you run to the plane and then you're out again.
This is one
now
bag
cannot because you have a team with you, so it's a little bit different.
Unless you get them all to run with you.
I'd rather not.
Everyone backpacks together. Everyone
backpacks together. But I mean, it's interesting you said before you joined the government, right? So one thing when we first met you and even ahead of this, like your experience before government is quite varied. There was private sector, non-profit sector, and then government.
Quite chapalang.
Yeah.
Tech,
and
also big tech.
You also work for big tech.
Yeah.
Right. So what what's the high level thought process of your journey so far? Like coming out, because you worked in banking as well. Right. Goldman Sachs, then
Facebook,
then LinkedIn.
Yeah. Before that I was at the UN.
Yeah.
So it's a bit roja, a bit chapalang. But if there's one underlying thread is I just am a very curious person, very curious mind. I try to learn as much as I can. So even in banking, I didn't go in having a huge knowledge of banking, but I went in and you just learned a lot. I mean, I was very blessed to have very good mentors and they just taught me about this. And I thought after some time I was there for about 5 years in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Boston. But after a while, if you feel like, okay, I've exhausted what I've learned, you go in there, you every single job that you start off, you're drinking from the fire hose.
Yeah.
Yeah. But after a while, if you have plateaued, you've found that you've learned as much as you can, and there's something else that you want to learn, then I'm very, very open to doing so. Yeah. So about 5 years after banking, then I went to tech, and that time Facebook was actually very small. I was one of the first couple of, I think about the 100th employee in Facebook here in Singapore.
What year was that?
I think it was 2014, 2015. Yeah. And then we were starting to grow. We were traveling every week. We were starting to, build offices here and there. And I didn't have a big tech background, but then you started to learn again. So, and in government also, when you move in, you also start to learn again. Yeah. So I find that if you you just have that, I have that curiosity. And that's what drives me across different.
But was that always the plan? Because I know you mentioned earlier your career background. When you look at it, it feels very rojak. But it's a very good type of rojak. It's the Goldman Sachs, LinkedIn, Facebook kind of rojak. Very high quality ingredients. So was it always building up towards like eventually, running for government and being in the position you're now? Because, Steve Jobs says sometimes those dots, they're out there, but they don't currently connect. But when you look back, then you start to see where they connect. Do you look back at your career and realize all this was leading up to where you are today?
I think it does connect in many different ways. And there's an underlying thread about just being very curious and just have a hunger for learning and a desire to just get different experiences. But there's also an underlying thread, and that is wherever I went, whether it be the UN or at banking or in tech, I always had the interest of Singapore at heart. Always. That is, it can sound very cheesy and everything, but it does. Everywhere I went overseas, people's like, oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Singapore. It's like, oh, Singapore. I have had a good experience. Yeah, good experience. And it made me feel quite proud wherever that I went. And I'm like, oh, okay, actually, this is something, if I had the chance to go and serve in public office or public service, that could be something.
Okay.
So it was something from traveling that made you realize, or growing up already you were like a proud Singaporean?
I think for many of us, my parents were actually quite poor. They lived in a kampong, and my mom was she had to work to support her family. So in those times, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew was really seen as somebody who really helped them to move from the proverbial third world to first. So there's always that. That generation, our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, they always imbued that into us. When we moved into HDB flats, when my grandfather had chickens in his HDB flat outside. So even on my mother's side and my father's side, they always said, hey, our nation was quite improbable. And so it generated that kind of pride, and it's like, if you had the opportunity to serve one day, you should ought to serve. So one of my friend's mom was an MP. Her name is Dr. Lily Neo. She's actually Indonesian, previously Medan. And then she came to Singapore because of the racial riots in Medan. And when Mr. Lee Kuan Yew asked her to serve, she just said, seeing what happened in Indonesia and coming to Singapore, I'm so grateful for this environment that I can then, thrive, be a doctor. And she said whatever Mr. Lee Kuan Yew asked her to do or serve, she would do it for him because of the country that he's built. So then, initially when I also quite enjoyed volunteering, but she said, why don't you come and, serve with me in Chinatown? And so I said, okay, I'll try. And she said, give you 3 months and just see whether it's impactful for you.
Yeah.
So I joined 3 months, and after that, within a blink of an eye, it was like 15, 16 years.
Oh, really?
Because, the way that she treated because in Chinatown, there were a large proportion of seniors.
Yeah.
There was also a proportion of vulnerable families. And for her, the way that she just looked after, you can just read all the, the past news about her, and the way that she treated the seniors, that looked after vulnerable families, it struck a chord with me, you see. Yeah. And so,
So how young were you when that happened?
I was 24.
24.
Yeah.
So that was after your studies?
After my studies, came back, she said, and
so you were working in Goldman and doing that?
No, that was, I was back. I was still serving in, I had a small bond with the SAF because actually I didn't do well in my studies. In JC, I repeated a year. Then I had CDD for my A-levels.
Okay.
So my only route was to go then, because I couldn't get to university, was just sign on. So I had a small a bursary called the local award. And I used that, and then I served 4 years of my bond after coming back.
Oh, in the army
in the army primarily.
Wait, so actually, can we just go a little deeper into that? Because I think I've heard you speak in public before about you're not the straight A student that, everything was fast track all the way to a cushy spot in government either. La. So I think that's something that, in Singapore, a lot of young people say we place too much emphasis on academics and all these things. So do you ever feel like, because of, if like, I think I'm very glad that you are very open about sharing what your scores were in school and everything, because sometimes I see on forums and all that, the kids today are like, oh, I'm going to fail this exam. I feel like killing myself, and really, really sad news like that. La. So do you ever feel like, did you ever feel a certain kind of cynicism or bitterness about the education, how education is in Singapore at that point when you were, not scoring as well as you would have liked to? La. And how did that square with what you're saying about all your life? You've always felt this Singapore's improbable nation and, you need to give back society. How did those two things coexist? La?
Yeah, I think in the past, so one, there's a macro picture, right? Where, I think when Singapore's industrializing, then you really had to make sure that, we quickly upscale and also educate our population. Mm-hmm. And in that time also, absence the internet and the proliferation of knowledge, a lot of that knowledge was imparted through rote learning. Mm-hmm. And I think that one, growing up, my learning style is very different. I don't know. I could not really jive with, rote learning. I mean, yes, you can try to iterate and, do rote and try to memorize everything. But my way of absorbing information or analyzing information is very different. It's quite visual. It's also a different, so if you look at my notes, when I take notes, it's drawing.
Mind maps and all.
It's mind maps. Yeah, if you look at my iPad, it's all full of mind maps. If I'm giving a speech, if I'm taking notes, it's on mind maps. Because I'm able to connect different ideas, different thoughts. But I think in that time with the A-levels and all that, it's very, very rote.
Yeah.
And I did not have a full appreciation of the subjects.
Sure.
Because it's like, okay, you learn this, what's angiospermophyta and all that kind of.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't connect with real life. For me, I needed to learn, I need to simplify things and make it real. Yeah. So I think that time it didn't jive so much with me. Okay. So I couldn't score.
But how do you feel about it that time? Was it anger or bitterness or anything?
No, I felt that, I just wasn't good at this.
Oh, really?
But you were still curious. You were still intellectually curious.
Yeah.
So you didn't feel disheartened? Like you're so curious?
I did. Because, I tried to work at it. I tried to study.
Yeah.
Especially, I think A-levels, a lot of people do struggle with it. Because, it just became, it's compressed. It's about 2 years and you just try. And I was exploring because, I think all of us have that struggle, right? So I thought, okay, I did triple science. Then later I'm like, oh, maybe that's not really for me. This is you're 17. Then later I said, hey, I kind of enjoyed the arts, expression, words, debate and the likes. And so then I transferred to arts. But frankly, then I also felt like, hey, what if I cannot get a job here? So then, it's, now looking back, you might say, oh, this guy is just so floppy, right? Or you can't make a decision. But at 17, even maybe when you're older, so you may not know what you are good at or what you want.
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of that fear kind of played a part where, yes, I enjoyed what I was doing, learning about literature, geography, history. But I feared a little bit like, oh, I cannot get a job next time. So I reverted back,
within that 1 year.
Yeah, within the score of 1-2 years, I reverted back because I repeated, right?
Yeah,
so 3 years. Then I realized, then you just had to go with it. So my final score was CDD. But my GP was A1. Because I was able to, and I didn't even study for it. It just came naturally.
Okay.
Like to put in arguments, to structure, and to articulate ideas in a very simple way.
I see.
Yeah. So you find your
Then what did you study for at uni?
Yeah, so because I couldn't get into local universities, and so we went to some of the overseas universities, and I got what I could get, which is at the Sydney University initially. So it was an arts and economics program, and what was quite useful was Sydney said, "Oh, okay, maybe your academics wasn't that good, but how do you do in other parts?" So I said, "Well, in the SAF, in the army, they asked me to join the officer cadet school. This is what my superiors said about me. This guy can lead people and can bring people together.
Yeah.
They said, you're looking, that counts for something, Yeah, so they gave me a chance. And then I thought that was just a second chance. Yeah, so I did economics, I did arts. And I found it that is much easier for me in that regard.
And then you killed it.
I did okay. Yeah. But then you have to, over time, overcome some of these hurdles.
And then what made you want to go into the world of finance? I mean, you did study economics, but why Goldman?
Well, after I served my bond, so I was in armor, I was a tank platoon commander. Then I went to military intelligence.
Yeah.
And so I had quite a few good mentors. And then they, some of them went to the Kennedy School, and I kind of enjoyed watching West Wing,
Yeah.
There's like 7 seasons, so I watched it like 2 times, 3 times. And then, maybe the characters went to Kennedy School. So I was like, that's quite interesting. So you just you just try and you just apply. And really miraculously, I got a place there.
And this is the School of Business at Harvard?
At the School of Government.
Oh, School of Public Policy. School of Government,
yeah.
Okay.
So it was really it's such a, for me, it's a miracle. And they also offered a fellowship, which is basically paid the majority of my school fees.
Yeah.
So you can imagine it's like, it was for such a, it was a miracle for me. So went in there, you learned, I met so many incredible people, astronauts, people who were war journalists, Hollywood actresses.
Can you see which one?
Which one was it? You acted in Double Jeopardy. What's the name?
Ashley Judd.
Ashley Judd.
Oh,
she was my classmate.
Wow.
Shit.
Crazy. Yeah. So
last time my ex, when I was working at Scoot, the CEO there, Campbell Wilson, he did a 6-week executive course at Harvard. His classmate was Maria Sharapova.
There you go.
Then I was like, whoa, shit. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. But yes,
so quite interesting,
Yeah.
And so then you learned a lot of things. I thought then that so I went between the first and second year to the United Nations. One of my professors, a very famous professor called Graham Allison, he wrote this really interesting book called Destined for War, which I think is really important reading now because he talks about the inevitability of conflict between the US and China.
Yeah.
And he talked about the Peloponnesian War and the conflict that arose between the two parts, the two sides. And so Graham Allison was one of my mentors. I think he also did teach MM and some of the cabinet members.
I see.
So he has a very good impression of Singapore. So I benefited from that. And then he said, where would you like to intern? I said, well, in the army, I was involved with the peacekeeping mission at East Timor previously. And I would love to learn more about the UN. So I said, okay, I'll see whether we can get you an interview at the UN. Because one of my students was the UN Secretary General.
Oh.
Then, so, he got me an interview. Of course, you still have to make sure to ace the interview.
Yeah.
And then I worked at the UN for a short while.
One of his students was the Secretary General.
Yeah.
Oh,
Secretary
shit.
General Ban.
Yeah.
So, it was quite fortuitous.
Yeah.
But the UN, they didn't really, it's quite difficult to get a permanent role. And I thought I really wanted to go into maybe public service. But so there was an option to go to Zimbabwe. I have a friend who has a non-profit that looks after orphans that have been orphaned by parents who have died because of AIDS or HIV/AIDS. So there was an option, and then there was another option in Singapore, a philanthropic option. But then, as I was just shooting out my resume, right? Goldman Sachs came in, and the reason why I applied for that is because it was during 2008-2009, which is the financial crisis.
Yeah.
And the chairman of Goldman Sachs, the previous chairman, was the finance minister of the US, Hank Paulson.
Yeah.
And the New York Fed chair was this guy called Tim Geithner. So they came to talk to our class about the financial crisis. Yeah. So then I'm like, oh, it's quite interesting, his background. So I just click apply. Yeah. And I think they got back. And then for Goldman, you have to go through maybe 10, 11 interviews, So I went through that, and then I got the offer. then I asked my professor, then I'm like, hey, I'm supposed to go, I want to go and to do like save the world kind of stuff.
There you go, Coleman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he says, no, I mean, it's quite useful if you just go into the world of finance, just understand how it works. But eventually, I hope you go back to public service.
Yeah.
But you must go out to the world and see how you cannot always just go into public service and don't have a good feel, you see.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really good advice.
Yeah.
I did investment banking.
You did?
In the start of my career as well.
Yeah.
On Wall Street. But mine was completely just money. It was just money, really. I'll just admit it. It was just money. And that time finance was this like, it was a
that
whole
was
movement,
2007.
I think like 70% of my class applied for finance and all. So Goldman Sachs was like the creme de la creme to get there. But it's quite interesting that you talk about because I'm seeing a thread as you're talking that maybe there are some stumbles along the way, like studies or whatever, but you always seem to have like mentors that were very good to you along the way. And for me, I've not had that many that fortune of like having good mentors. How about you? Have you? Would you say?
Not people I look up to.
Or what you look up to them?
Yeah, look up to, but no close relationship.
Yeah.
It's just circumstantial. But also, when I look back, I could have seeked it out.
We could have sorted it out. We had access to people, but we never sorted out that way.
Yeah.
Why do you think for you it's such a big feature of your whole life and career? Like, why is it specifically that you managed to encounter so many good mentors who helped you, along the way and helped you give you a lot of guidance to get you to where you need to be?
Yeah, I think it's. I always really adopt a posture where could you teach me? It's always, can you teach me? And different mentors, sometimes they are more active, sometimes they are more passive. So for example, some mentors you would just learn from their, they don't necessarily give you a lot of advice, but through their exemplar, you learn a lot. Like Dr. Lily Neo, the way in which she treats people, I just learned that, I just modeled that, you see. Now, of course, from time to time, she gives me a good advice. Others, they will, one of my mentors at Goldman, although he was a banker, but he widened my vista, my horizon, because he was a student of history. So he always, even when we are looking at the macro picture, he's always like, giving, have you read this book? Have you read this book? This is the historical context of this lens to this situation right now. And so in banking, you're like always thinking, okay, how do you make your alpha? How do you make your money, right? But to be able to bring in that sense of history and context and culture, I thought made it very rich, you see. Yeah. Then another mentor at Goldman, I was very, very thoughtful, is he was a very high-ranking guy. Yeah, but he was so humble. Like, he was a former high-ranking US official. Then went to Goldman, MD. But he always said, he taught me something which I remember till this day, and I always practice. He said, Alvin, whatever position that you're in, just remember it's a position, but don't lose yourself in it. Because when you take that opportunity to serve in that position and enjoy that privilege to be serving that position. But when that season is over, remember you're just Alvin. Don't let it conflate with who you are, because he advised me that there are many people who conflate like, now I'm a minister or an ambassador or MD and I'm an excellency or whatever, right? And then that becomes my identity.
Yeah.
But it ought not to be. You have to be able to walk away, because your identity is who you are, not what your position confers. So different mentors teach you really different things.
So that means when you became minister, said you didn't broadcast to all your friends on WhatsApp, hey guys,
then like, yo,
I'm Minister of State, yo.
Call me your excellency.
Change your phone. I'm MOS.
The status,
MOS
status.
Done,
Call me Moss. No, but like for these relationships also, do you is it in something that's internal to you? Like, okay, I see this person as a mentor, or is it something a more formal almost. Because in my first job at Singapore Airlines, there was, okay, you are paired with someone. And I think it's part of their KPI to also meet your mentee once a quarter or something.
Then a bit awkward if you like come in and you're like, hey, I really want to learn so much from you. Can I hang out with you every day? It's a bit like being too eager to date someone, right?
Yeah, so exactly.
How do you do this? How do you do it and not be awkward?
Because there are a lot of people that I look up to, that I know Terence looks up to, we look up to, but it's always like, okay, in my mind, you're like, I look up to you. But they don't know that I look up to them. But for you, is it something like you kind of ask, can you be my mentor? Yeah. How is that?
You have to bend and like kiss the ring.
Bend the knee, kiss the ring. But I do think now I also am mentor to many. And
paying
you also, they're just giving back, right? But I also know that I'm very, very busy. So I really can't like devote a significant amount of time. So I've always been very mindful that, whoever that I've asked, I don't really just say, hey, can you be my mentor? It's a bit awkward lah. Then I also don't want to lay some pressure on the person where like, oh, okay, I have so much things already, I still gotta go mentor this dude, right? So I just just ask for time, and then you make it. You don't impose a lot, but you just ask. Can you teach me? And then over time, then you don't need to make it super regular also, but from time to time. For me, I mean, I really, really, in government, I have really the privilege of working with someone who I think many of us very, very much respect. And that's SM Tharman Shanmugaratnam. And he's the one that had invited me and asked me to join him at the Monetary Authority of Singapore as a board member. And so I do, sometimes I just ask him, as I text him, say, hey, SM, can I come out to your office? I just have some question. How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you think about this particular thing? How do you put this idea or thought into an idea? What do you think if I want to plan for this or that? And he's just a wonderful guy, and the way, he conducts himself, it's like, he's his Tharman way,
Tharman,
and he's like, you should, maybe you want to consider this, Alvin.
Oh, okay.
And then over time, you also kind of mirror somebody whom you admire, you respect. And I find myself sometimes, for those that I really respect, you inevitably, you sometimes mirror them, right? So I find myself, not imposing, but just asking. And those that, some people, they like, okay, I just give you some time and that's it, don't bother me. But
correct.
But there are many who, I mean, over the course, they do. And now I think SM Tharman really, despite his busy schedule, when I ask him, he'll
make time.
The answer is to slide to the DMs.
Don't
overdo it. Don't be over eager.
No, it's like dating. It's like dating.
You cannot be like, oh, let's do coffee, please.
You'll be like, oh, I want to catch up. Can I? Okay, yeah.
Everything you say, respectful, and mindful of that time.
So actually, building on that, so I mean, we talked about academic side of things. Was quite tough back then, but there were a lot of people who helped you along the way, lah. And for me, one of my big regrets when I was younger is that I studied too much, spent too much time studying. Whether it was university, whether it was A levels, whatever, I didn't spend enough time just hanging out or meeting people or talking to them or seeking out, like mentors or whatever. Do you look back and like when you talk to your mentees and all that, do you tell them anything about, like they say, oh, my studies are so bad and all that? What do you tell them? What is more important, studying or meeting people, going out to parties and all that? Where do you find that balance?
I mean, I always tell my mentees or the youth, they're just very simple advice: just turn up. And it's just two words, right? Turn up. You'll be surprised that many don't, and when it, either you turn up, and turn up is like basically just be there. You be there, then you can learn, you can make decisions, you can contribute, or very importantly, sometimes turn up on time. It was on the dot right today.
You want to turn up.
Try on time. But again, not many people do that. You'll be surprised, or then they will just ghost. So these things are some just very basic ones. But if you do that, then you're more likely to learn. You're more likely to make that relationship. And you're more likely to be able to contribute.
No, and I must give you kudos because when I messaged you on LinkedIn, I was thinking, will he answer? Will he respond? Then you did. I was like, oh shit! And you turned up. Yeah, and then today also turned up. Yeah.
There's a saying, all right, 70% of success is just showing up.
That's true.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think for me, it applies to even dating. Like if you don't turn up at the party, you won't meet anyone at all. You'll just be at home looking at your computer all day. And then I think that was like the big shift for me. Like,
to start partying, is it?
No, yeah, just being out there. There was a point like 10 years ago or something when I was single and I was like, it's so difficult. If you don't turn up to the party, nothing's going to happen at all.
No, I mean, same for me. Like, before I met my current fiance, I was on dating apps and all. And it was so easy. After a while, dating is like, you're just like, do I want to go? Do I just want to meet up with friends? But you have to go up. You have to turn up. You have to turn up.
How do we start talking about dating?
Everything he was saying, mentor, mentee, we're like, oh, dating, yes, correct. Slide into DMs.
But just, that means if a kid comes and tells you that, I'm not interested in studies or I'm not doing well in my studies and all that, like the advice to him is to just turn up. Don't. I mean, I got exam tomorrow. Should I go for a party or should I be there studying? That's the question.
Turn up. You got a kid, right?
Yeah, I have a kid. So I'm just thinking. I mean, you have kids as well. So like what would, if they were to come to ask you, Dad, I have a test tomorrow or something like that. But there's this friend's very important party or what that I need to go to. What will you be telling them?
But they should prioritize and they should do what's there. And after that, then you just enjoy yourself, man.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there is also a cause to be said about delayed gratification, right? I mean, if you play sports, you really do your hard work at the gym first, and then it pays off, on the field, on the courts. So I think that one of the reasons also that I probably didn't do well in JC is because I spent a lot of time playing sports, but you also learn a lot through sports. Yeah, I mean, I remember one where...
So you play what sports?
I played two sports, which is too much maybe, I think. I played football, I played tennis also.
Okay.
Yeah, and you learn a lot from on the field. I mean, that's camaraderie. You learn a lot from on the tennis court because of the focus and you want to serve an ace. You must be there making sure that you whack the ball like 100 times first. Then on the actual match, you have a higher chance. So I think that discipline also helps a little bit.
I see.
Yeah.
So just now we stopped at where you were at Goldman, right? And then after that you made the leap to big tech, right? First LinkedIn, then Facebook.
First Facebook,
then LinkedIn. Yeah. So we're talking about, okay, it feels like up till Goldman you had a lot of great mentors and you basically took a lot of opportunities that you saw and you made it happen, right? So then what made the shift? Because, based on what that first mentor or that professor said, hope you go back to public service. So after Goldman, did you think about going to public service or what made you go into tech then?
Yeah, I mean, I was at GS for about 5 years, if I'm not wrong. And then tech was starting to... I mean, now you are a tech winter. Yeah. But then it was the spring.
Booming, right?
It was not even starting to boom yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it started. You have Amazon. Yeah. Google is really quite mature. Then you had this thing called Facebook, and so there were a few. So LinkedIn is very powerful as a platform, and I used it as a student. Tried to build my resume, and then so after you build some cachet and a bit of that reputation, then you have some of these headhunters call you. Yeah, so they said, hey, there's this company that is, a social media company. Would you like to join? So I went through the whole interview process, and it's quite funny because some people are like, hey, why do you want to join this app? Right? Yeah. And I'm like, well, there's much to learn about this, and it's like, why do you want to leave Goldman? Because you're already a VP, just wait 1-2 years, and now my friends are MD, you can make huge bucks and all that. But again, I knew that I had learned as much as I wanted to. I mean, there's much more you can learn in banking, but I was excited about learning about tech. So when opportunity came, then I just joined lah. Yeah, and again fire hose. But it was interesting. Because then I was involved, you were almost involved with everything, setting up new businesses, looking at investments, helping to build Instagram, helping to build use cases for WhatsApp, and then helping people to get used to selling stuff on Facebook, small, medium businesses. Yeah, and then looking at content also. So there's such a variety of things. There was not one day where you were sleeping because it's just so exciting.
So and you were there for how long?
I think about almost 5 years too.
Almost 5 years.
Yeah, but the focus there, I mean, your title was Director of Public Policy at one point, right? And so that was the point when like social media, everyone was still grappling with how it affects, how countries and institutions use social media. And, in the past 5 to 10 years, we've seen it go from like, oh, social media is it can help like the Arab Spring and things like that. And then like years later, it's like, oh, Donald Trump used social media to, instigate a riot in the capital. So you were there through this transition, right? Did that give you like, well, what kind of perspective does that give you about where social media is headed, where it's going to be in the future? What do you feel? I know it's a very broad question, but because you were there in the trenches during the transition, I think it's interesting to hear.
And also now you're a LinkedIn influencer.
Oh yeah,
right? You have like 60,000 followers. Yeah. So throughout your in looking at all that, where do you see it?
Yeah, there were two kind of philosopher that talked about this. I think it's Marshall McLuhan who mentioned that we make the tools that then shape us. And then there was a very interesting book that I then lent to Minister Jo Teo recently. It's about tools and weapons. It's written by I think the Microsoft president. So it's effectively, these are tools, right? And it can be used for good.
Yeah.
It can be used for not so good. So in the early days of social media, I mean, I think all of us, the world was quite naive because like, wow, Arab Spring uprising, and then you're like, oh, it's a proliferation. The people now have a voice, and then you realize now. Then you'll be so euphoric about this, right?
Yeah.
Now you're like, oh, look at this. This is a recipe for disaster. I think because the proliferation of social media was so quick, also, and there was some naivety in like knowing that it could only be used for good, because in the initial stages, I remember very clearly, I spent so much time in Indonesia, and we were at the process, we just had acquired Instagram. And so we were seeing young entrepreneurs, they call them SMEs, right? UKMs in Bahasa, using Instagram in a way in which they were selling batik, they were selling, and there was this, I remember this company called Batik Culture by a young lady, and she was employing people with disabilities. And she was using Instagram to build her brand, Batik Culture, and then later on selling the batik. So we were like, hey, I didn't realize that small and medium businesses were also using Instagram in this way. And so we then worked with the product team to say, hey, why don't you make it in a way in which you can Shopify some of the tools within Instagram. So we saw that, and then we saw benefits towards helping to increase Wi-Fi penetration in some of the different markets. We thought that we wanted to give people more of a voice. So we built the platform. But then increasingly, I think the naivety came in where different people, different cultures will accept certain content, whereas certain cultures don't accept certain content. So that's one cultural one.
Yeah.
Then the second, where there's abuse of the platform, not just by commercial players where you have spam and all of this kind of stuff, but also by state actors.
Yeah.
And I think you've seen that across the last 10 years or so. And then increasingly, you realize that, you need to have some rules around policies around what can be shown, what cannot be shown. And sometimes what can be shown is legal in a jurisdiction, but it's not legal somewhere else. Yeah. So it's so complicated. And also coming in Asia, and then also trying to explain to headquarters like, hey, Asia is a little bit different in terms of how it views race and religion. There's a bit of that sensitivity. Can we put necessarily a good thing to put a Western lens into, how you express yourself? Yeah. So you see a live a clash of ideals and even Western ideals. Now it is very apparent.
Yeah.
But then you start to really see that happening. Yeah.
So where do you see it? Where do you see it going? Because right now, even for us, we started this podcast because it just felt like the media was getting so polarized. There's social media, there's mainstream media, there's traditional media, and it was just an overload of extremes. Do you see it like getting worse and worse, or do you see it like there's going to be a mass correction effect where, okay, because even recently there was a new law to police social media a bit more, right?
Online Safety Act.
Yeah, Online Safety Act. So how do you see more of that happening, or do you see it just kind of self-correcting in future?
I'm not sure. I'm not very optimistic that it can self-correct because you already now have a proliferation of channels and platforms. And even within the channels and platforms, you have, the argument is that you have these echo chambers.
Yeah.
Because the more that you consume, like, okay, for me, I'm a Man U fan, so if you look at my feed, it's Man U stuff. I don't see like Liverpool or Everton or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and that is how the algorithms work. We have tried to like tweak the algorithm. So you say, okay, I want to see less of this. And then if you see another kind of content, then, that content start to appear, right? Yeah. So, but ultimately people want to, it's what DPM Lawrence Wong says, we're quite tribal.
Yeah.
And that is why that is quite in our human nature. And that's why in Singapore, many of our policies, we try to make sure that we interface with one another, we interact with one another. Otherwise, our race and religion policies is, either in our political system or our housing system, we kind of force almost, the mixture in our housing estates and the likes. So if you look at what's happening online, it's very difficult too. Because then you have your own channels, you have your own tribes within that, either within the platforms or across platforms. So I'm not sure that it's so easy for us to, proverbially put Humpty Dumpty together again. But we must elevate the platforms or even sources of truth. The only challenge right now is that, we always say we're in a post-truth world.
Yeah.
Because then, what's your version of the truth?
Yeah.
And if you get too entrenched in that version of the truth, then neither the twain shall meet, you see. Then very difficult. That's why you have, in a lot of different parts of the world, polarization of politics. And even now, the polarization of geopolitics between the US and China. And I think within their own spheres, within their own countries, there is that already. It's like, the Chinese are like this, or Americans are like this. So it makes it so from local politics, domestic politics, national politics, it transcends into geopolitics, which is not so healthy.
So for you, in terms of even as a consumer of social media, you feel generally positive about it or negative? I'm asking because like maybe 7-8 years ago, everyone's like, oh, Zuckerberg, he could be the next US president. Oh, he wears the same t-shirt to work every day. He's so hardworking. Now it's like, memes and Zuckerberg, the billionaire guy who books out a whole arena for himself and things like that. Or Elon Musk for that matter, oh, he's Tony Stark. And now he's like the chief Twitter. So I feel like the general impression that people have of social media, it used to be like, it used to be a force for good. Now it's like, I don't know, billionaires playground kind of, But what do you feel about it? Like whether it's a personal consumer of it or in your position, dealing with policy and all.
Yeah, I mean, there is no panacea, but I always do encourage when you post on social media, you can inject good into it. So I try to, as best as I can, post about positive things. Yeah, and even when you see negative comments, there are two ways to do it. One is those really xiao one, right? I'm just block and ignore because it does affect no matter what, I'm sure both of you also experience it. Sometimes you say it doesn't affect you, but sometimes it affects you.
No one's immune.
No one's immune. Yeah. So you have to look after your own mental well-being and just block and delete lah. But there are some where you also want to make a little bit of a point. So I think somebody had one comment in one of my posts. And it says, oh, you're flexing or whatever. Then I was like, well, why don't we just...
Sorry, what were you doing there?
No, I was just... it's very innocuous, It was me just saying...
flexing.
No, it's not that. It's not like... I don't do this kind of stuff,
literally flexing.
I used to play 2 sports.
I'm like, no. So I was basically just saying that, and I took a photo of my hand and my little girl's hand. And I just said, I struggle with it because I have these important meetings that I got to go to, and then her school play is upcoming.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, school play,
Yeah.
right? And it went quite viral because I had like almost about 800,000 people who saw the post. And then somebody's like, "Oh, you are just soft flexing." Then I'm like, okay, I thought maybe I want to either delete this or I want to make a point. So then I said, okay, just make a gentle point.
What was his rationale for the soft flexing?
He says, I don't know. It could be like, okay, you're so important that you must.
Oh, so he just put you are soft flexing.
Yeah.
That's it.
He says it's good enough to. He says it's good enough if you want to say that you prioritize your girl, but maybe don't soft flex. So I
soft flex.
I'm like, I'm not. So I said, why don't we? It's probably helpful to assume best intentions, and that way we can lift one another up instead of putting each other down.
Yeah.
And then people started like, I agree with that, you see. So you start to learn also that you don't go and hantam, somebody and make them feel bad.
Yeah.
But I think you try, even where it's a nasty comment, where it's reasonable. Some people you cannot just reason and you just delete the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I think in some way it can be cordial. You just, share something which, hopefully people, you don't make the person feel bad, but you just say, hey.
Yeah. So, so building on that, like, you talk about injecting positivity if you want to get back positivity from it. But does that mean that the algorithms in a lot of social media as they are now, are they just built to, for outrage, to get people more incensed? Like maybe you post something nice and a bit more balanced, it doesn't go get the viral clicks that usually, like compared to something that is outrageous, So is that a fault of an underinvestment in, creating a healthier algorithm for everyone? Or is it just people just don't know because it's such a new thing even to the social media companies themselves about how to manage people's behavior when you're talking about hundreds and millions of people on the platform?
Yeah. I don't know. It could be because of, humans' innate nature. Yeah, I hope that humans' innate nature is a bit more
positive,
benign.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think sometimes, we could be too quick to judge. And then you're like, and I don't know, maybe sometimes you, in order to feel better about yourself, you want to make, other people feel worse or just make yourself feel superior. Sometimes that happens, right? Yeah, and I think that many of us who are able to rise above, then we try to rise above where we can.
So then why do you see a need to post on LinkedIn or social media? Because you do get politicians, even in Singapore, who are not on social media. Maybe they've been in politics for a lot longer. I don't know whether Tharman is on social media, but you see this new wave of politicians on TikTok and LinkedIn, and you especially post a lot on LinkedIn, right? And you do it all yourself.
I do it myself, yeah.
Do you have a schedule, like there must be one post a day or something to stick to or something? No, it's just as and when.
Yeah, when there is an event.
Yeah.
So I do use across the social media spectrum. I try to, but it's quite tiring.
Yeah.
So sometimes I see whether a volunteer or two can help. But I think the most impactful one is when you post your own in your own articulate voice. Those are the ones that they're the most authentic.
Yeah.
The reason why I post is also, LinkedIn is useful because of my portfolio.
Yeah.
At the Monetary Authority of Singapore, at the Ministerial of Trade Industry, and MCCY. Because LinkedIn has CEOs, they have government leaders, investors. I find that the kind of content that the kind of activity that I do on both the trade ministry in business, as well as in financial institutional policy and the likes, they lend very well to the LinkedIn crowd. Yeah, and I use that also to promote Singapore because they want to know whether we are open to investment, or, who their leaders are, and I think you try to influence and just say this is who we are. So when we open a new factory or it's Volvo or whatever, and tomorrow I'm going there, opens new electric buses or something. I think those lend to the fact that if I were a foreigner looking into, and I see that Singapore is so open, and look at their leaders, I'll be more inclined to maybe invest a lot more. So there is that angle.
Yeah.
There is that angle. Yeah.
I see.
And a lot of people, even the youths are there, and it's easier to tag them on LinkedIn. But you don't go and post things which are not very appropriate. Don't post like cat videos and everything.
Yeah.
I think the algorithms don't lend, I believe they don't lend that well to that kind of content.
Given that you were in Facebook and LinkedIn, which, I mean, sometimes they come to blows with governments, with public policy, Facebook especially. So now that you're on the other side, like, was it a big change, or was it very eye-opening, or like, how do you square that off?
Yeah. I think it's ever evolving.
Yeah.
Because I think, Terence, you mentioned earlier on that in the past, there's so much euphoria on the promise. So that book also says it's tools and weapons, but it's also perils and promise. A lot of alliteration, but quite useful frame.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of promise, but then there's later on you see a lot of the perils of the platform. And I think over time you see that people, even the platforms themselves, get to a realization that there is that dark side, the peril, and it can be used as a weapon. And there's also a realization that you cannot just self-regulate. You need to have the governments, policymakers to help put some structure into it. Because they, as a commercial platform, you cannot absolutely do everything and then be blameless.
Yeah.
But was that something you were already thinking about when you were with the social media platforms, that, okay, this thing, it feels like regulation is coming? Or it's only when you went to public service, then you saw the other side of it?
Yeah, I think it was an evolution. Because at that stage, you already see that, well, number one, the social media companies have to regulate themselves. Number two, you have to have a framework to allow for them to say, okay, well, I cannot, for example, distribute this content in a particular country because of these laws. So I think there was a shift already happening in that regard, where you say, self-regulation doesn't always work. You need to then put in more of the regulation from a certain jurisdiction.
I see.
But different jurisdictions have different cultures. And so I think that's what the Online Safety Act was trying to achieve. And it's come at a good time or right time, because you now see a bit of that, actually a lot of that dark side, that peril. And I think coming in and having a lot of consultation before this Online Safety Act was passed last week, the week before, helps. Because ultimately you want to have a safe space. You don't want to have, a negative experience on these platforms.
So has it been a big change going from, I mean, you can do a lot of work at Facebook, at LinkedIn, at private companies without the public knowing anything. Now you're a public figure. Has that been a big thing for you to come to terms with? In terms of, everyone sees your work. You're in parliament, you speak, the whole country's watching. Whereas for Facebook and LinkedIn, any private company, you can be a huge decision maker, but it's still all behind closed doors.
That's why it's called the private sector and the public sector. So the public sector, I think there are a few of us who came from the private sector in the last elections coming in. Dr. Tan, who's the second minister for trade, who's a minister for manpower also, and we came into government quite directly from private sector. So I think it would be quite accurate to say that it was a big adjustment for us. Number one, you already are now you become a public figure. So, whatever people will expect a different level from you. Expect of you. That's one. The second one, the big adjustment was, I think not many, in my class, in previous classes of MPs went into public office at the height of a crisis that, was a crisis of a generation. So you just go in and oh man, this is huge. And you don't really have time to think, You're like, okay, what needs to be done? Dude, this is a crisis, man. And there's no looking left, looking right. You've asked for the mandate, you're now in the seat. You have to make these tough calls. So I don't think we had a lot of time to settle in. I was asked to look after the tourism portfolio at MTI. And can you imagine? I didn't have a lot of experience with tourism, but in our mind, tourism is oh, come, right? Open, right? But then my first job was close. And my STB team, they were going into the establishments and no, you have to close. If not, we fine you. Are you breaching the SMF, the safety measures and everything? And I really felt for them because they went into the tourism sector, tourism board, to promote Singapore. And now they're like, no, cannot, close, everything closed. So, going in, I still remember one of my first meetings, it was with a lot of them, and I think the karaoke establishments and all that. And we said, no, you can't do that. And wow, I mean, the mood was just palpably black and bleak. I mean, now 2 years later, you see, recovery, shoots of recovery. But going in there, and having to, and it's not just the tourism side, but in my own constituency, just going door to door, and then people are closed, just helping, convincing our seniors to get vaccinated. Wow, the level of stress was through the roof. But then you knew that once you go in, you're going in with eyes open, just get down to work.
So was that the most intense period of your working life up till that point?
Well, I think, Terence, you know that investment banking is very, very intense also. But this one, the difference, I worked hard at banking and tech. I mean, that one is a given because you're just hustling, you're just jonging,
Yeah.
The difference in public sector and in public service is when you go home and you're like totally spent, right? You're like, oh, I made a difference. Yeah, really, it's so rewarding.
Now that's the satisfaction you get every day.
The biggest satisfaction.
Wow.
Yeah. Like people, say, hey, thanks for making a difference. I'm like, oh, okay. This one you can't get in a P&L. P&L you get, you can get your bonuses, you can get your stock options, everything. And it's very different from in the public sector.
Yeah.
But the reward that you made a difference in the crisis of a generation. And you're still now steering us now through the economic downturn.
Yeah,
it is quite remarkable. I mean, 20 years later, I look back, no regrets. Now it's like, oh, it's a lot of work, man.
Yeah. But before you made the leap to politics, was it clear that you wanted to join the PAP, or was it ever in your mind to you be open as long as it's public service?
No, it's very clear that I wanted to join the PAP because number one, my parents and my grandparents, very, very clear, they were fans of Mr. Lee, knew what he did. The second is my mentor, Dr. Lily Neo, who really embodied, I mean, there's one thing to say about the party, but the party is represented by people.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Lily Neo for me was like, okay, I'm joining because of how you've served Chinatown. And for her, she's serving in white because of what MM did. So I don't think people associate that much with the party, but with the people who represent the party.
But actually, there's something quite interesting because, we recently were looking at like FTX, the founder, Sam Bankman-Fried. He has this idea of effective altruism, right? And the philosophy of it is that I help the world by becoming as rich as possible and giving that money to the world, right? So looking at your background, Goldman Sachs, like you said, you could have become MD, made partner, made a lot of money, and then give back to the world by, donating money or
starting a non-profit or...
Whether at Facebook or LinkedIn, you're also in a huge position of power and, whether it's heading out a startup, also making a lot of money and giving back to society. But this thread that this route that you've taken is actually, it started with volunteering, which is a very humble, a very on the ground, boots on the ground kind of thing. Why do you think that approach of volunteering was the way that you wanted to give back as opposed to the other ways that people think about it, whether it's philanthropy or altruism, effective altruism and all that? Why do you think for you volunteering is the thing that made you want to do it?
Yeah, I think many of us are wired very differently. For me, I just found that little satisfaction. Like, when you help somebody, and there's that feedback loop. There is one particular story that embodies this. And it was when I was, I think, 20, I came back late 20s or early 30s. And I helped with Dr. Lily Neo setting up this after-school care for youths called Catch Plus in Jalan Kukoh. And there's this guy, he'll be very, very happy that I mentioned him because he's a wonderful guy. He's my mentee. His name is Shanger. And he has, there's a story you can Google and everything because he came from low income, very, very broken family in Jalan Kukoh. And he told a story about him and his brother. And we set up this program called Catch Plus where, after school, they will come, provide free meals and then provide tuition and sports and everything for them. And now we still keep in contact, and now he's doing well. He's now going to get married, going to have a flat, and he's overcome that. And he says, no, I want to, and he's come back to serve also. And these kind of things and he just texted me, right? And then later on, I think he put something on IG, and then he tagged me as well. I'm like, wow, this kind of thing, it is very rewarding.
And money can't get that kind of thing.
You can't. You make an impact in somebody's life, and you multiply it by so many different people. That is remarkable.
I see. Yeah, because it's just, I mean, we've spoken about this, I think, with Dr. Janil, he was on as well, that in Singapore, let's say the path to public service seems to always start with being on the ground. Whereas, in the US and all, I think we had friends in uni and all who were like, oh, I want to go and work for government and be in a think tank or something like that. And so they study public policy or economics and all that. And it's a very professional career towards government. But in Singapore, it's much more, it feels like you got to start somewhere by really putting yourself on the ground, and then not just be at a high level looking at policy and all that. Do you think that kind of limits the talent pool that we can find in Singapore? Because I also ask because, like you said, you are from the private sector, and there's always talk about, it's so difficult to get people to join politics from the private sector because the trade-offs are not worth it and all that. Do you think in Singapore because of the way that we're structured in terms of politics and all, that actually artificially limits our talent pool?
From the private sector?
Yeah.
Primarily.
Yeah.
I think it's becoming even more difficult to recruit because the rewards if you think purely from economic terms or financial terms, the rewards in the public sector, the private sector, particularly if you are doing well in your, mid-late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
And I have many, many good friends who are running companies or who are, partners in banks or startups.
Yeah.
The financial downside is significant,
Downside as in
the financial
joining
politics. Oh, okay, yeah.
Basically, to put it very bluntly, the pay cut is significant.
Yeah.
So that's a financial cost.
Yeah.
The financial consideration.
Yeah.
If you are doing quite successfully in your field, either in business, for example. Then there's also the emotional mental cost, which is also, now particularly with social media and internet, sometimes you cannot hantam, right?
Yeah.
You got these negative comments and everything.
Yeah.
So that's another one. And then the third one is also the time cost. It's very difficult, and now, you have to balance, my wife, mostly single parents. And I do feel, when I must, contribute lah. And so, from time to time, she's just wonderful because she holds the fort.
Yeah.
But she has to be in alignment, before we go in. If she says no, then no lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it a big conversation before you joined?
Conversation. But
was it like a very long period of thinking about it before you jumped into it?
She knew where my love for Singapore, and she knows that if you have the ability, and then if you're called, then just go in. Yeah. But one thing which I think we do regret, and I personally regret, the biggest cost for me is not the financial side or everything. The one is that I really wanted a third baby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but then she's like, but then no time. Then I don't want to change diapers alone and then wake up by myself and look at the baby. So frankly, that was, to me, all the other costs can manage. But this one, I think, if you ask me for a regret, that would be my regret.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because I really, really, I'm really close to my two little ones. I really love it. But this is something which, if there's one thing that we are not in alignment with, is this. I would love number 3, but just like most of the time you're not home, man. Yeah.
So how much time do you it seems like you're doing a lot. You mentioned these books you've read and all. And I personally, reading is one thing I wish I do more of. I just don't. I listen to podcasts and all, but how do you think about splitting your time? Are you very militant about, Elon Musk is he schedules his day in 5-minute intervals, right? Do you have a certain philosophy to that?
No, I think we have a lot of, because I have typically 4 jobs now. One is you look after my constituency, which is large enough, and it stretches from Pekyo, Cambridge, all the way to Little India. So that's huge. I mean, there's a lot to do in that constituency. Then you have the MTI role. So next week I'm going to Mexico, and then I'm scheduled to go to Uruguay also. So trade and industry, so it's business. Tonight I have another event with the marine industry after this. And then tomorrow we're doing something, I think, with one of the electric vehicle companies. So that's already a huge chunk, There's the trade side. Then the Ministry of MCCY. So I'm looking after youth, I'm looking after race and religion, and then, I help with sports and arts and everything.
Yeah.
So you have, and then MAS, which is effectively a lot of parliamentary questions. And then, there's, financial regulation, growing the fintech. So you have already 4 jobs. It's like, one time, go in, 4 jobs. And so you kind of have to manage it in a way. You have to have very understanding, ministers as well. Because we are considered junior ministers in that regard. But I'm now beginning to also say no. So I hope people also understand when I say no, it's because I just need a breather too. Or I really want to spend time with my wife and my children. And it's also important to set aside time for, I love, working out and playing football. So I have certain times where I'm like, non-negotiable.
I see. But so like, is it possible for you to go to your boss and say, I don't want my job scope too much. I can't deal with so much going on. Okay, because I only ask because literally before this podcast, I was like, hey, Harisha, I've been looking up Alvin Tan, like all his speeches recently and everything. He talks about everything. He talks about terrorism. He talks about youth. He talks about the HDB. He talks about, corporate debt and all that. He's covering so many things.
Yeah, he literally told me that.
Even we don't know all that much about everything. What are we going to talk to him about? But I'm just thinking, how do you process all that different information? And, you have to deliver a speech here to people in Mexico. And then after that, you have to go for some dinner with some electric vehicle. How are you balancing everything? Because at least for when talking to Janil, I had this impression, okay, he really knows his field, like medicine and all that. And, but he doesn't practice medicine anymore. So he's able to devote time to this. But for you as a junior minister, you came out of the private sector, all that, you've not had that runway to okay, now I'm going to be in charge of housing policy and stuff like that, or be on MAS board and all these things. How are you managing that learning and of information and just being able to talk eloquently and clearly about it to people?
And do you have plans to start a YouTube channel on studying hacks?
Podcast.
10 ways to memorize everything. Yeah.
Well, how is that? How are you balancing everything?
It's very tough. I have to be very honest. It's very tough because you switch channels all the time. Last night we were doing something with A-Star. So then you got to switch to that. And then, this morning we're doing something else from culture. And then later on I think it's the marine industry. And tomorrow there's electric vehicle and then so on and so forth. So I think that's where sports come in for me. I don't need to be the striker, but as a teammate, you want me to play ball carrier. We're Man U fans, so Philip Neville role where it's low key. That kind of nobody knows. You know what I'm saying? Nobody knows one, but then plays that important role, right?
You plug the gaps.
You plug the gaps, So I'm very clear. If you need me to plug that gap, I don't need to be the Ronaldo or whatever. I just plug the gap for you. And because it's a big team. So let's say if like Minister Gan couldn't do something or somebody else.
Oh, I thought you play football with Minister Gan,
No, we have another team.
The secret league.
The secret league, Janil also said.
Right?
So you just plug the play. You plug the gap. You try to play the flanks and help the team as much as possible.
Okay.
But again, coming back to our original point about the learning styles. So for me, really, the mind maps work. Because my way, sometimes, and I think students also don't need to be so hard on themselves if they cannot read, that kind of notes where it's just so intense. So what I usually do is I see, reams of papers, right? And I'm just like, okay, I just take out the key points. I put it down into a mind map. And then I think the biggest skill now to learn is how do you make connections between certain points. Then that's most important because then that's how innovation comes about. And that's how I learn.
I see.
Yeah.
So is there like you were talking about some certain books that you read that you shared with Josephine Teo. Is there like a book club within the MPs or what that you all share what you all read and what's interesting, and then you all lend
Your
each
Shiok
other?
Things, your Shiok Things, your Shiok books.
Is there like
yeah.
this? How do these kind of recommendations get shared around?
Sometimes through text.
Okay.
I think there's one time where Minister Lawrence, last time he was minister at DPM, he said, hey, let's have lunch. And then we were like just geeking out. He's like, hey, can I show you my Kindle? His Kindle. And he reads a lot. DPM Wong reads a lot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's like sharing like, hey, I just read this, I just read this. And yeah, and I think that helps because we do a lot of like policy work, but to read something that is, a bit more outside, it just gives you different ideas. Sometimes, PM will send us some very good articles or some of the ministers, and then we share a little bit. It helps you to get that sense. But when we share, then we add some commentary, like just maybe 1-2 lines and like how it applies to Singapore. Yeah. And then if you want to read a little bit longer, then you just delve into that book, you see. But those are helpful. It's just, I mean, like what Harish says, it's quite difficult to find time.
Yeah. So like the one you said earlier that, okay, through your work experiences, there's always a common thread, right? But now that you're doing a lot every day, you're doing different things, has there been a point in time where you felt like you're losing yourself? And if you have, how do you grapple with that?
Losing yourself meaning?
Just like, because okay, like let's say for us in media production, right? Sometimes we are so caught up in producing podcasts, writing and all, and we can't step back and think about, okay, the big picture of media, our business, what to focus on. And sometimes I do feel like when we're writing a script about zombies or something, the next few days I'm like,
thinking of zombies.
Who the fuck am I anymore? I don't know. I don't know what is going on. Time means nothing. Do you feel that happening?
I think it affects everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it affects everyone. I mean, sometimes, to be frank, it gets overwhelming because you have so many different things. And there's one time, just on a Saturday, I had like 8 or 9 events. And you are just, and I think something that I learned, and I'm a bit now much more understanding to many of my colleagues also is, even though you are at an event, let's say you start the day at 8 a.m. and your last event is 8 p.m., people expect you to be as fresh as you are at 8 a.m. But maybe at 8 p.m. you're like, oh man, I'm zonked out, man. I can't smile anymore. I can't, play A game anymore.
Yeah.
Because we're humans, right? I mean, it's flesh and bone,
Yeah.
So I do feel sometimes like that. And I ask some of my colleagues, I'm like, hey, how do you do it? So, the ones who have been there for long, like Janil or others, then like, sometimes I go back home and I'm like zoned out. And, Harish and Terence, actually, what's even more difficult for me is I'm introverted. Yeah. So some of my colleagues are extroverted. So they get a lot of energy from interacting.
Yeah.
For me, introvert, I don't know whether you are introvert or extrovert.
I he's extroverted lah for sure.
For sure. I think,
come on.
Come on.
Please, come on.
No, I think it's not like when you told me you were introverted, I was like, oh, really? I think I'm like that also. People think I'm extroverted, but I do. So this is the kind of debate that we have on the podcast.
I think Obama was introverted, If you go research, I think he was. And the difference was...
But you as in you self-declare as introvert or you...
No, I did the...
Oh, you did the test.
You self-declare. The LinkedIn profile, introverted.
So there's objective.
But it's objective too, and you also feel it. Because if I ask more of my extroverted friends, like my wife is extroverted, she's like, she needs to go out. Like she has to, and then she enjoys this company, right? Like, for me, I just, after a long day or anything, I just want to go home, read my stuff, play FIFA. That's my thing, Yeah, so it's a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But some people really get the energy.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit easier. But there's a book about introverts, right? What's that book called? A World Where for Introverts. I think I can't remember the author, but it really resonated with me because they also said, introverts also think a little bit deeper, they're a bit more sensitive and everything. But yeah.
So then, like being in the public sector and an introvert, that must be like there's a lot that to overcome. Like, is that a fair thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
I have to admit there's a struggle because, but I think as I was now reflecting, like, how do I do this, man?
Yeah.
I was reflecting then, but how do I do it, right? It's actually, I'm beginning to realize that my sense of duty helps me overcome this introversion.
Sense
So,
of duty.
so for me, again, it's like the teamwork, right? Like you ask me to do something, if the team needs me to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Whether, I'm tired or tired, just take a quick 5-minute cat nap, power nap, or I will just go ahead and just do the job because I think duty calls for it. So for me, it's quite clear. If duty calls for it, I will just do it. Yeah.
But that means there was, during the pandemic, all that, was there such a thing as work from home for you? Like, could there be a possibility of a day that, I just only have meetings on Zoom? Or is every day is just you're running around?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be on the ground.
Okay, so you have
and I think leadership calls for the fact that when your colleagues are on the ground, like, I mean, I was there with my STB team. We were doing raids and making sure things are happening.
Doing raids.
Yeah, I mean, we just inspection, right? Inspection of whether people are flouting the rules. Because I mean, now it seems a bit funny because you're like, why are we doing that? But at that point of time, you remember that, there's a real risk of a spread.
Yeah.
So at the early days, so, they're like inspecting. Then I just joined them during the eve of New Year or Christmas Eve, buy them like tau hui. These are little things, if I can, do to help the team, then just help the team. It goes a long way because they get, they feel that, we're in there with them.
Well, that's a super tough conversation to have with wife and kids. Like holidays and all that, where you're like, I got to...
but then I spend like the evening, then later, I didn't, when they're sleeping already, then 12:30, 12:40, then I just go.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the rates at 12:30, 12?
I mean, these kinds, if they're going and all that,
Oh.
Yeah, the inspections.
I see. So then, like the public service, like what you said, there's a satisfaction for helping people and you generally are making change. But do you sometimes feel that at this point in time, maybe amongst maybe the younger demographic, or maybe there's a greater sense of the anti-establishment right now in society, on the internet? Do you feel that as a bigger obstacle for you to face with each mountain? Like, it's almost like if you work for the incumbent, the government, it's almost like you have to prove your sincerity and authenticity. Do you ever feel that?
Yeah. So yesterday I was at a Today panel and they had a study. Let me see if I get it correctly. They said that I think majority of youths, I mean, the challenges they feel is inflation and the cost of living, but they also want their political leaders, their 4G leaders, to be more accepting of other views, also more open, more open to criticism and the likes. You see. So, but I think also a majority of them trust the 4G leaders to guide them through the economic crisis. So there's some, based on this Today survey of about 1,000 youths, I think it's quite optimistic. One of the learnings is also that many of them, they don't know who the 4G leaders are. So I think we can do a bit more work on that front. But I think generally, of course, I think every youth as we now have kind of established to a more advanced economy or advanced society, of course, we want more checks and balances, and it's just very natural. But yesterday, as I also mentioned, it's very easy to check, but then it's very difficult to govern. And last week when we had our debate on GST, it's very easy for us to say don't do law. Right? I mean, it's politically stupid for us as what MP are trying to say. It's politically dumb for us to raise GST, particularly in an inflationary environment. But this is where I think I do respect, and I'm happy to be in the PAP, and because we make the decisions where it is if it's tough but it's right. And GST, nobody likes it, right? Nobody wants to raise it, but we've seen that healthcare costs have tripled over the last 10 years. And it's likely to triple in the next 10 years. Yeah. It's going to account for maybe 3+% of our GDP. So we see that coming. We don't want to burden the next generation. And what we're doing is we didn't just hantam this, We looked at the figures. We say, okay, now we put in the GST assurance package and the cost of living package. We have to tailor it in such a way that it doesn't add to inflation, but yet it helps the most vulnerable. So even though you put in GST, the GST assurance package ensures that the lower income will not be affected for 10 years, and most Singaporeans in the middle income will not be affected for 5 years. So it's actually quite similar to the calls by the WP to delay GST. Yeah, so I think that's something which I really respect, that what we are doing, either in GST or even 377A, whereas these are very touchy, spiky topics, I mean, we are not opposition. We are not, at that fringe. We are governing. And when you govern, you have to take a stand. And you have to deliver on it.
Yeah.
So I'm quite, for me, I'm happy to be part of the team that does this. Not shy away from difficult questions.
Well, what do you say to those people who, critics who say, of course lah, ministers with their salaries and everything, they're out of touch with the person on the ground who's, GST is going to hit them badly. Well, what do you really, how will you respond to people like that lah?
So this ministerial salaries have been, debate has been on for, since many different years ago.
Yeah.
I think had also mentioned that you need to make sure, you have to have good people in government. I don't for one moment believe that any of us go in, to go and for financial reward. I mean, I've already shared with you that the reason why you cannot find people of, my, a lot of my colleagues or my peers is because financially that might not be.
A pay cut,
but politically you can't say that publicly. But I mean that is the truth. And as private sector salaries rise, you look at ministerial salaries, it hasn't risen. It's actually stagnant. And I think you check me if I'm wrong. I think there was a cut during COVID time. I went in, I was like, oh, okay.
Yes,
and we didn't even blink an eye. I went in. They're like, okay, we had. I think it was a third or something like that, 30%. I mean, for me, that wasn't even a consideration. I'm like, okay, I'm PM asked me to join the team. I'm going in there. I'm just doing my best. Yeah. So I think that as now time has elapsed, you'll see that I don't believe for a moment that people go in for financial reward, because the financial rewards outside, if for any knowing person, I mean, you all know that there are more opportunities outside.
Yeah.
But you need to find people who really, have that. And for the amount of work, you can. I mean, these things nobody tell you. Oh, Alvin, you have to go into your market, at this time and wake up at this time and this time. We go in because we believe in it, and it's hard work. 6 a.m. sometimes 12 midnight. If anything happens in my constituency, I'm going there. I'm helping out on the ground. Fire, or my whatever that happens on the constituency. So you are going there because you are pulled for a sense of calling. It's very clear.
Yeah.
It's absolutely clear.
So do you see yourself staying in politics like for the next 20, 30 years? Or do you have any idea at all? Or
I don't
you
have
found your calling already?
I would say that the work is very, very hard.
Yeah.
And it's very, very intense. But it's also very rewarding in the ways that I mentioned earlier on. I don't for once assume that I'm going to stay for a very, very long time. And there's a reason for that. One is you just can't assume, because some people might think next round I want to have more people come in from the opposition. Then you just leave, right? I mean, but we work hard on the ground every day. I'm in touch with my residents every day, clearing their requests, going down and all that. So we do the work on the ground. And then ultimately after 5 years, if you think that we are able to help you, then, you vote us back in. But if it's not, then, I think we really have to reflect and see what we can do better. But for me, it's clear, because like what my mentor said, right? I have not for one moment conflated my position with who I am. So if one day, PM or the next PM says, hey, thank you, Alvin, for your service for the X years, we won't feel you again. I'm totally fine. And I have to be fine, because that's my disposition. This is not my identity. And if this is not my identity, then the decisions that I make and my motives, are actually much more authentic.
Well, given what you said, like, do you think any of your ex-colleagues or people that, your peers from work in school last time have been inspired by your experience and now want to like come forward and serve in politics? Or maybe you've told them, hey, don't join, don't join.
No, I always tell them to join. Then they say,
you tell them to join.
No, I say, hey, they come in. They says, don't want you I see you. You work until like that. I don't want to go and join. They say, no, you must. Yeah, and it's like, well, do you even sleep at all? I was like, yeah, I do.
You like just take an espresso shot or something.
Got read book, lunch with Lawrence Wong, all these kind of things. Still got time to relax. But yeah, like, do you think you've And your experience encourages people to maybe think about joining politics or like maybe dissuade them because they see like, oh shit, I could be doing so much better outside, you know?
I think you really need that, really, I mean, again, although it sounds cheesy, you really have to have that love for people in the country and to make that difference. It sounds cheesy, but it's really, if you're on the ground, you will know what I mean. Yeah, that sense of like, oh, I really, and just that day, I had 2 people coming to my MPS and like, hey, thank you for solving this, you know, or thank you for speaking to my daughter. You know, it helped her. Like, oh, okay. And it meant a lot, you see. Yeah, so these things are very intangible. Nothing that financial reward can ever, you know, take place. But I think, you know, if I look at one person I admire a lot is Dr. Tan See Leng, who's Minister of Manpower. And I mean, he's had such a successful career. I mean, but he came in at 50, 55. I think he's, much senior to me. But, you know, he's got it made already, right? But he comes in, you know, has one of the 2 most crazy portfolios, manpower and trade and energy. And, you know, kudos to him. The amount of work he puts in, these are the, you know, quite intangible. Really respect.
I see.
So when you say amount of work, is just like the time he spends on the ground, the time he spends...
The time he spends on the ground, the time he spends to master his brief, the time that he spends to come up with policies, bring different people to land policies like Compass, like the One Pass. I'm doing a lot of work with him on helping our migrant workers, on CPF, on energy. I mean, if you just look at what he's done, man, it's quite incredible, you know, on such a short time.
Yeah.
But if you ask him, he'll say, well, ESM Shiok Thing had asked him, and he found a sense of calling, and he could easily just go and retire.
Yeah.
But and that's why I really have respect for him.
So in 10 years' time, people will be saying, oh, you know, like Minister Alvin asked me and I had to join. That's what's going to happen. Right?
I don't know, man.
He called me and I was there. I had to turn up. He told me, turn up, and I was there. I turned up.
That would be ideal. It's not like I see him, then I don't want to join.
But so you got a lot. You were talking about you had a lot of different portfolios, or at least you're plugging a lot of the gaps where your colleagues are, you know, trying to fill.
Just help. I think complementing.
Yeah, but for you, like, is there one particular area that you hope that you can be your focus going forward, or what? Like, if you could spend more time on it, if there's one area that you would want to be focused on.
Yeah, I really enjoy my portfolio because I did not, you know, you come in. I'm thankful to PM and to others who gave me these portfolios because I think I'm in the right lane. I mean, there are ones that stretch me, like, you know, for tourism, I didn't have a clue about tourism before, or agri-food tech before. But I'm doing a lot of work on like the tech sector, also investments. I wasn't very familiar with trade with Latin America. Now I have studied it and I hopefully mastered a brief. So there's enough stretching. I really enjoy the race and religion portfolio, and I think we've done a lot of good work in making our IRCC, the Interracial and Religious Confidence Circle, making it modern after 20 years, calling it Harmony Circles, making it more youthful, more diverse, and more tech-based, digital. So I'm very proud of some of these things. Even like our culture, our youth side, right? Launching Mentoring SG, and then also the Mental Wellbeing Network. So these things are quite impactful that we've done. If you ask me, I think I'm quite in a sweet spot in that regard. MAS, I kind of enjoy the intellectual rigor about finance, fintech, and all that. I mean, I think over time, if you look at how, you know, different people have transitioned, some will, you know, you go into, you know, other ministries, then I think I'll have to pick up. But I think I'm quite in a sweet spot now. It's just that there's too many things.
Yeah, I feel tired just listening to you listing out.
I'm also quite tired just doing that.
It's like how your mind has to jump between so many channels at one go.
No, and yet you're generally a smiley person, right? Is there like, do you have like 5 minutes like every day where you just like go in a room, lock yourself and scream or shout, or what's your release? I know you mentioned playing FIFA.
Yeah. But FIFA now,
It's intense also, isn't it?
No, because the new FIFA 23 actually makes me more angry. It's very hard.
Because of the physics and the ball physics.
Yeah,
and all
the
that
ball
now,
physics.
right?
So I play with a very, very good friend, and we've been playing for like since FIFA that like 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I usually like, we are either at par or there's one part of time in FIFA 22 I kind of trash him, like 6-2. And now he's been trashing me. I haven't won one season.
Well, what's the big difference?
No, I think it's either I'm damn tired after a long day and you cannot force this,
Yeah.
Your reflexes,
You cannot go into the tackles.
Yeah,
you must hold your line one. So I'm like I was like, I just want to get a score, right? You must be patient.
Yeah.
So I leave a lot of gaps and then he's like trashing me. Then, you just want to throw the bloody thing.
It's like the modern game lah. Now you have to really like be disciplined as a defense, and you can't have any gaps, no holes, and it really starts all the way from the goalkeeper upwards. Kind of crazy.
So you play like online with your friend and all
I
that?
play online. Yeah, I cannot play foot Ultimate Team because there's a lot of time commitment. So you just play online seasons, friendly.
Yeah,
it's quite fun.
So if we catch you screaming, it's probably while you're playing FIFA.
It's mostly now FIFA. I want to go and relax, but then it turns me in a bad mood.
Then your friend got purposely choose the days like after Parliament. He was like, hey, want to play a game?
He's like, hey, want to whack? I'm like, dude, you just want to have an easy game, right?
But actually, on that note, like speaking about games, you think it's time for the one Shiok? Shiok. Or you had any other questions?
No, I think we're good. We can talk about the one Shiok.
Yeah. So we told you what we do normally at the end of every podcast, the one Shiok thing. We'll go first, and then it'll come to you. So this is just something to share with our listeners. Terence, would you like to?
Why don't you go first?
I go first.
Yeah.
I think for me, one thing I came across recently, which I mentioned way back as a Shiok thing also, is this content creator called Unnecessary Inventions. So I first started following him, I think about 2 years ago when he had like 40,000 followers on Instagram, or maybe even less. He's a product designer and his tagline is creating solutions for problems that don't exist. So basically, it would be stuff like like Thanos had an infinity ring, infinity gauntlet with the 5 rings, right? He would come up with something that can hold the saucers of chicken McNuggets, and then just to dip lah. And then one thing I saw recently was on your TV, if you don't want to watch commercials, like anytime a commercial plays, these curtains will come and cover the curtains, and it says ad break. And he started off just doing videos, photos, and then now videos. So he shows the do-it-yourself. I mean the behind the scenes. Now he has a fully fledged studio that turns some of those into actual products, just as centerpieces and all that. And I just read an article recently about how he's built a business. He has his dream, like 3,000 square feet studio with 19 3D printers, and he just makes the most ridiculous shit. And he's huge now. I think he's like 2 million followers or something. And his content is one of those that you watch. It's not like clickbaity, it's just good content and it's fun. So I respect his hustle as a creator. IG, YouTube, TikTok,
cool.
Very well produced, and he just makes fun shit. Yeah. Unnecessary inventions.
That's cool.
What about you?
My one Shiok thing is actually this NBA season. I don't know if you follow basketball or anything, but there's something crazy going on right now in the NBA. Like the last season's champions, the Golden State Warriors, they have historically the worst record of any champion starting the season. And the team that was projected to finish last in the NBA is now number 1. The Utah Jazz, yeah. They sold all their all-stars but for some reason, they are the number 1 team in the NBA right now. So everyone is very puzzled what is going on, that, the good, supposedly good teams are all just like falling off the wayside. Whereas the teams that are projected to do very badly are just like, for some reason, gelling and it's working lah. Then you couple that with whatever's going on with Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets. There was a controversy about how he tweeted something that was anti-Semitic and almost refused to apologize, and then people had to step in and suspend him. The NBA had to step in and suspend him. So there's just so much drama going on with the NBA season right now that I feel like it's of all the different sports going on. I mean, football also has its own drama.
World Cup,
World Cup. Yeah, but the NBA is like this no one's talking about it as much as they should because it's just so crazy right now, all the statistics about it. So yeah, do check it out if you want to just sit through a season that seems a bit strange. This is the season.
Okay,
Golden
cool.
State did really well last year.
Yeah, I mean they're the champions, but this year they haven't won a single game on the road.
And they still have all the players.
Most of them. In fact, they've bumped up the squad, if anything.
Oh,
but yeah.
cool.
There's a video about it talking about how crazy all the statistics are for the season. So we'll put
and we're halfway through already, is it?
No, just started a few weeks only.
I'll go check it out.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah. What is your one Shiok thing?
Oh, I think we briefly touched on it last at the start. It's the mind-blowing Ronaldo interview.
Yeah.
That is and I'm in two minds because I'm a huge United fan.
Are you a Ronaldo fan?
Yeah, of course I'm a Ronaldo fan.
Yeah.
But more of a United fan because from the days even before Cantona. So it's another mercurial striker.
Wait, you said you're a fan pre-Cantona, even before Cantona?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah,
Mark Hughes and all. Mark Hughes was before.
Wow. Brian Robson as a little boy, and then, you see there. And then Cantona came from Leeds, you remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
So Ronaldo, I was quite disappointed. I think many of the United fans were disappointed because number one, he didn't play as well as last year. Then he refused to be subbed. I mean, he did not even come for preseason, and then he refused to be to play when Ten Hag asked him to play at the Tottenham game.
Yeah.
So then I think this week, it was revealed that he had a very explosive interview with Piers Morgan. Yeah. So on one hand, I'm like, dude, you're a legend, right? Why do you want to destroy your reputation and this love affair with the Old Trafford faithful by doing this? Yeah. So yesterday, I was just watching one of the YouTube videos where Piers Morgan kind of revealed a little bit, and he says, "No, you guys there is a reason why Ronaldo did some of these things." So he's slowly, raising the curtain about the interview. And what Ronaldo mentioned is that in the start of the season he has his twin babies, and he lost the son who died, stillbirth, and then the twin daughter during the start of the season, she was ill. So he said, like, this is my daughter, I want to be there for her and my family. Yeah. So in the interview, and this is now open on YouTube, the interview says that he said, but the Old Trafford leadership didn't believe him, so he didn't feel respected and all that. So it also got me thinking, like, was I too quick to judge? Like, why do you, you're a superstar, why do you do this? Yeah. There's always maybe two sides of the story. So
your one Shiok Thing is going to listen to the full interview.
I'm very, very excited about this because I think I hope that it pans out well. I don't know whether, ultimately, because now the World Cup is on the cusp, right? Yeah. And he's really now training with the Portuguese team. I think World Cup starting next week. Is it next week?
November 20th.
November 20th. Yeah. So I don't have high hopes that he's going to stay in United because it seems like you burned all the bridges. Yeah. Yeah, but it's quite interesting.
But do you want him to stay at United as a fan?
Yes, I do. I think he has a lot to offer. Because last year he scored more than Harry Kane,
And they were playing shit.
Yeah. So I think, and I admire him because of the way in which he looks after his body. He's 37, and you cannot just like that lose your professionalism. I mean, to play at that level, at that high level, you must have that discipline. So what cracked him? That for me is very intriguing.
I mean, same for me. Like, because we are recording this on Wednesday. If this comes out a few days after the interview, the world might have changed already. But earlier today, when we were recording our podcast, I also was talking about the interview, and I also feel, as much as I'm disappointed in him to do it, it doesn't make sense. Just based on his track record, to suddenly go off tangent like this. So like you also, I think there's something more to it. I don't know whether the interview will reveal everything. He might still come off looking like an asshole. But it just feels like there's something a bit off. I'm also a huge Ronaldo fanboy. So I'm totally biased. And now I hope he wins the World Cup and becomes top scorer. So
I told Harish, the only thing that seems to be excusable from what Ronaldo did is, let's say, that thing about his daughter and all that. If that made him emotional, and made him flare up and like post something on social media to complain about it immediately, I would understand. But it seems like there's been a bit of time since then. And usually, with time, those emotions kind of like, you cool down and you don't think so emotionally about it. So yeah, I also think that there must be something more to it, because to me, the big question mark is, why does he say that his coach doesn't respect him and he doesn't respect the coach? Because that is like, the player-coach relationship is like, it's such a important thing in any club. Like, even with someone like Ronaldo, like you can't talk about your coach in that manner. That's like you burn the bridges, just by doing that.
Yeah.
So was it something that was said or promised or what that wasn't delivered that to make him say something like, I don't respect my coach? Because now even if he wants to leave Man U, everyone's gonna be like, oh, what are you gonna say about the coach? What are you gonna say about the
and
squad?
Who wants him? Like,
yeah. So it's not just burning bridges with Man U, it's burning bridges with people saying that you're professional. That's what I'm very.
That's true.
Like you've really like jumped the shark, so to speak, in terms of like people saying, oh, you're a consummate professional. Because I'm not a Man U fan, but I was very excited about him coming back, because you rarely see that kind of loyalty, that kind of like, oh, player wants to come back and help the team that is not doing that well, that kind of thing. You rarely see that in any sport. It's all individuals and, like LeBron James pulling all his friends together and player power and all that. So I can't stand that. So Ronaldo coming back to me was such a beautiful thing. And then he scored a lot of goals, had a lot of nice moments. But this was like, wow, crazy. I can't understand it. Although, like I mentioned, as a parent, you understand that daughter thing. If someone would do that to me as well, I would also be like, I'm done here, But I don't know, man. This one is just it's such a confusing. Yeah, so it is a one Shiok thing for all of us, where we want to see what is going on, but it's like watching a car accident as you pass by and you're like, oh shit, did it really have to happen? But you're like, oh, I want to see.
I'll message you next week. Maybe next week you're like, oh, Ronaldo is dead in my book. He's out.
You never know.
Yeah.
But it also reminds us that everybody's fallible.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter whether you're a goat or you're not a goat.
Yeah.
There are not many goats that attain that.
Also,
is another one.
But does that tarnish in your mind the GOAT discussion for you? For
no, I think on the pitch, and even the way, there's this video of him kind of berating his Juventus teammates. It just shows you how intense a competitor he is.
Yeah.
But then there's also another video of him like encouraging his younger teammates in Portugal. And
yes, Portugal. Yeah.
And there's also one with the, when they just pre-warm up, he's also, encouraging. So like, it doesn't gel.
Yeah, it doesn't gel.
It seems as though from the preview that, family for us, it definitely comes first. So I think he may have felt disrespected. Yeah, but we are all humans. He apologized for Tottenham outburst too.
Yeah.
But sometimes we pin our hopes too much on our idols.
Yeah.
Not recognizing or remembering that.
Yeah, human.
Like us, they're also human.
Yeah. I think that's the cognitive dissonance that Man U fans are living with now.
Shut up, Terence.
That you want to love him so much, but he's done something that
No, I do not say he's right. I say he's wrong. But there must be something to it. It doesn't make sense.
I'm saying I empathize with what you guys are feeling now. It's a damn tough thing to live with when someone you've idolized for 20 years, and he comes back as the prodigal son. Then the next moment he just
tell how much Terence is enjoying this.
That's true.
I love it. This is
drama.
This is the kind of thing that really peels back what goes on in the football clubs. Because as much as it's just a sport, it's also group of humans coming together and needing to find a way to work together towards a goal.
And some more, the World Cup is happening next week.
Yeah.
Probably the last World Cup for him. And Messi maybe as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Two legends of the game.
Yeah. You're going to be watching the games?
I would love to.
So no sleep. You're not going to sleep in November.
You just talk about him not having sleep.
I'm like,
so November no
but
sleep.
But there's some like 9 p.m., there's 12, there's 3 a.m., right?
Yeah.
Try that.
Try. But cool. Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I think that was a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And hope you had fun. And if in future, if there's any chance for you to come back, we would love to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just text me, man.
Yeah, cool. Yes, exactly.
All right.
Awesome. Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks, Harris.
Thanks,
Terence.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you all soon.